Hey guys, it's Alex from ShopUp here, and today I have another new deck list for you for the new OPO4 format. Now, just so you know, there was an announcement by Bandai that said that these ban list items that you see on the screen right now from Whitebeard are still remaining banned for this period. So this changes the way we're going to build Rebecca, because Rebecca was essentially made as like a counter for the red decks that were so prevalent in the Japanese meta when they unbanned the Whitebeard cards. Now, since our Whitebeard cards still remain banned, that means we are going to be playing a different kind of build that's more adjusted for the mid-game and tempo matchups that we'll probably see more prevalent in this new OPO4 meta. So without further ado, let's go straight into the deck list. All right, so let's go into the deck list now. Okay, so let's go straight into the deck list by discussing the leader first. Rebecca is an amazing dual color leader in the fact that she has 5 life, meaning she doesn't come with the higher risk that comes with having that multicolor leader. Now you're probably asking, why does she have 5 life even though she's a multicolor leader? And the answer to that is because of her ability, she cannot attack. So she won't be an extra attacker on the board. It makes your deck very slow, but because of the synergies that you get playing the Dressrosa cards, you essentially get a benefit of being slow by being able to use synergetic combos to take control of the board in most situations. So Rebecca's ability is activate main once per turn for 1 Don. If you have 6 or less cards in your hands, you can then draw 2 cards from the top of your deck, trash 1 and pick 1 as long as it's a Dressrosa card. So you're basically always +1ing your hand, and this gives you the ability to basically out-resource your opponent by the end of the game. So the idea is to control the board and slowly outpace your opponent and essentially beat them by just having more resources than them. So this is actually a really good ability, and it's kind of broken, but they did nerf this by making sure that she can attack. So that's 1 less person or presence on the board. So let's go straight into our deck list now. And we'll start off with the lower count, the 1 drops. We play 2 Leos. Leo is a 1k counter, but also on play you may rest your leader and you're basically able to KO one of your opponents with 1 cost or less. It's very good when in combination with a few of the other cards in the Dressrosa package. So very much a really good card to play, but it's not so prevalent and needed. What used to happen is when the Zoros and the Whitebeard decks were more prevalent in the Japanese meta, this card was at fault because it would allow you to basically counter out your opponent. It's still going to be really good against your Law matchup, which is a very strong matchup in this current OPO4 format. So I'm still opting in to play 2, but it can sometimes be unnecessary and end up being a brick in your hand against the more mid-rangey, like long-game / mid-range tempo decks that you will be versing in this format. We play also 2 Rebeccas. I don't know if I need to keep these in. A lot of lists in Japan actually stopped playing Rebecca towards the end of the format, and it's just a nice to have. You're already getting draws off your leader Rebecca, so you don't essentially need this. It's just an extra bonus draw that you could get, but it does allow you to have a target for destroying a Dressrosa card for the effects of other cards in your deck that need to KO another Dressrosa card. So it's still not bad, and it's a 1k counter at the end of the day, so not too bad. Let's continue on with the 1 drops and let's look at our first 2k counter that's very important to play, and that's Gyatz. Gyatz is very much a really good character in the fact that he's a 2k counter. Always use him for his 2k counter. I'd probably use him more as a 2k counter than his effect, but every now and then you may want to use this effect, which is on play up to 1 of your other opponents can attack active characters on your opponent's field. So with the Colosseum in play and this, you're basically able to start negging your opponent's board presence. So it can actually be very good to play it sometimes, but most of the time I'm using it as a 2k counter. And moving forward for our next 2k counter, we're going straight past the 2 drops into the 3 drop realm. Tashigi is really good because it's a 2k counter, but also its ability on activate main is resting his character to give up to 4 of your opponent's characters -2 during their turn. You can get them down to a lower level so you can easily remove them using your 1,000 Swords or other removal that's prevalent in this deck. So, and it's a good stat line, 3 for 4, which means you just put a Don on it and you can start swinging with it. It's much more better than the Tsuru, and I was playing another 2 drop counter before, but I thought Tsuru was a bit more overkill. And now in replace of the Dressrosa 2 drop blocker, we're playing Don Quixote do Flamingo. Now this is actually really good in being able to fix your following draws and kind of like get you the tempo you need to actually make it through to the end game. So love playing this instead of the Adeo, and it's very much a great blocker. His stat line 3 for 4 is really good, so you can even start swinging with it. And it's also a 1k counter. So I think Doflamingo is probably the best play here, because we do have Bartolomeo, which is a 2k counter as well, but also a cheap chump blocker. Very good, and it still works with all the Dressrosa synergy. So definitely a great blocker Dressrosa card to play, and you can end up using it as a target for some of the KO abilities you need to do. Let's talk about our best and most persistent Anthem card, which is Kyros. Kyros is almost unkillable. When you have him on the field with your leader, if someone tries to KO him, you can tap your leader and keep him alive. And if you also have the Colosseum on the field, you can tap the Colosseum. So he has basically 2 lives. This makes him very sticky and hard to deal with, and people will just kind of leave him on the board instead of trying to get rid of him, and then he was always a consistent 5k. But also on play, he can actually, if your leader is Rebecca, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 1 or less, which is a very powerful move, a way to get rid of opponent's stuff. Combos really well with the Olympus. So usually you play Olympus first and this second. So never play your Kairos too early. You're most likely trying to get your Olympus out, try and keep it on the board, and if you do, then you get the value out of playing Kairos the turn after, because Olympus's ability is now live. And I think Olympus' ability requires you to KO something. You KO the targeting Kairos, tap your leader, and he doesn't get KO'd. So it's pretty good. So even if you need to KO your own monsters, that's pretty good. Borsalino I play at 1. I'm trying him out. Might go up to 2 or 3. He's a good blocker in the black color. He has that ability of not being KO'd, which is so good. And then he gets plus 1000 on your opponent's turn. Very good blocker. Might pump him up, but just giving him a try in my deck. And in the other flex spot, we're playing free Kuzan. So this might get replaced by more Borsalinos, but Kuzan has been very good with that extra draw power, being able to give one of your opponents -4 during turn, which combos really well with your Kairos later on in the game. Just really good when attacking ability. And sometimes though, his draw is kind of too much. So there's games where I've actually used so much draw power that the Rebecca is no longer live, because you need to have 6 cards or less. Sometimes I'm sitting with 8 cards in hand, and this Rebecca is like not able to be using her ability anymore. So it's very interesting how strong in draw power this deck is, for having what seems like no draw power, draw power specific cards. Now Olympus is a key card in your deck. Play at 4. Its ability is give up to one of your opponent's character -4 cost during the turn, and then trash 2 cards from the top of your deck. So it's a good way to get yourself mill, and then also KO one of your Dressrosa type characters. So you play this first before Kairos. Kairos, you target him for KO, and then you can tap your leader and he doesn't get KO'd. Very awesome. Also, if you play your little 1-drop Rebeccas or 1-drop Gyats or something, you can also target that for ability to -4 and then play Kairos as well. So it's not too bad actually in getting things off the board very early in the game. Now, once we have kind of like board control, you want to keep that control using really awesome control cards. And one of the best 5-drop blockers in the game is Sabo. Sabo has been such a pleasure to play. Don't be afraid to ditch him though, and trash him for the Rebecca effect. Very important that he's not that great. Having 1 is all you need. You don't want to keep holding on to him. So if you need to trash him to do and activate other abilities, don't be afraid to let him go. But having 1 at least in the hand is really good, because of the ability not to be KO'd by effects for a whole turn. And it's all characters on the field. Doesn't just count as Dressrosa characters. Any character on the field, if this is played during that turn and the next turn, the opponents cannot KO your units. And also it allows you to draw 2 trash 2, so it fixes your hand, and as well kind of enables the mill for your later combos. So very happy I got the manga Sabo from one of my pools recently, so that's a very awesome to be able to flex that in my deck. And now we look at our top range, our thick range, our big boys hitting for the game. Monkey D. Luffy is our first big boy. It is insane as a character that usually comes in on the board. If you have Colosseum on board and you can attack into your characters that same turn, his main ability at the top, his passive, is the character can attack active units, which is amazing. Just inherit. And so as soon as you play him, if you have Colosseum on board, you're attacking the active units or the rested units. It's really good. And the best part of his ability is the activate made once per turn, is you may return 7 cards from your trash to the bottom of your deck in any order. So you can start like layering your deck and stacking it in the way you want for the later game. And then you can also untap him and then attack again. And then he's frozen until the next turn. So if he's rested, he won't unrest during the next phase. But that again, if you have enough cards in your graveyard, in the next phase, even though he's frozen, you can still untap him once using his ability to attack again in that next phase as well. So he's very versatile, very good, and just a big beater. Worth playing at 4, definitely is the key big hitter of the deck. Let's go into our next big hitter. We play Isho at 1. I like this because sometimes against the more grindier deck matchups like Crocodile, when they have strong hand size and they're getting the resources on the same level as you are, you may want to fight that resource battle. So sometimes I'll play it and take, if they have 6 or more cards in hand, just take 2 cards out of their hand at random and just start trying to win back that resource game. And as well as that, it's on when you put 1 Don on it, your opponents get -3 costs, which makes a lot of your other abilities for removal active. So a very good Anthem card, as well as a good way of getting back that resource game in the long games against Crocodile, and even when I was versing Dofi, it was very good to get 2 cards out of someone's hand. Kuzan, I was playing it too, but I put 1 down for the Isho. Very good when you see him, but you don't want to see him too often because it can be a brick. But when you play him and he minuses 5 from all your opponents, and also usually gets that KO off as well on play, can be very strong, very much makes it very easy to use the Kairos ability and the Gyat's ability, the Leo ability to start getting rid of things from their board. So he can actually make a lot of your removal cards much more effective and easier to use. And new tech I'm playing, which is the blue Kaido from the new deck, the new OPF4 Kaido. Return up to 1 character of cost of 8 or less and 1 character of 3 or less to your owner's hand. Very versatile. Gets rid of basically 2 things usually off the board. If you're lucky, at least 1 thing that's 8 costs or more. It's very big. 8 is a very high cost number and usually gets rid of a lot of things. So very, very useful. Good against all matchups, even against Law. If you want to get rid of 2 things, even if they're both less than 3, it's still good. It still gives you that ability to slow down the Law player. 12k stat line, huge, and it's generic, so it doesn't need a Animal Pirates leader or anything. So very good. I played the 1 of just mainly because I got the old art, but also because his ability is cracked. Now going into events, we played 2 Colosseum. 4 Colosseum was too bricky and a waste of space in my deck. I always see Colosseum, and when I don't see Colosseum, it doesn't really feel like I've lost anything by not playing it. It just gives me an extra life to Kyros most of the time, and enables me to start interacting with the board earlier. I do like to see it against the Law matchup and the faster matchups, but there is a lot more people playing the slower decks at the moment in this early phase of the format. So definitely recommend dropping that for room for other things. 2 3000 Worlds, which is a awesome remove anything, usually with your Anthem or minus cost abilities. This ends up getting rid of almost anything on their board, so super powerful in this deck. Ends up being great value, especially when you have a Lombus on board or some other way of people bringing everyone's cost down. And then 2 Trueno Bastardo, which is a remove anything as well, like KO anything up to 6 or less. Usually you have 15 or more cards in your graveyard because you're always milling and always using Rebecca's ability to dump 1. But even if you don't, 4 is still a high enough cost, especially in combination with like Olympus and the other neg abilities to bring the cost down of your opponent's cards. It's always live, even when you don't have 15 in your trash. And finally, we have 2 Gum Gum King Kong guns, double attack plus 6k. Usually I'm putting this on my Monkey D. Luffy and swinging twice as well, so it's the game finisher most of the time. This is definitely need to be played. The triggers on both these cards are not too bad either. Like draw 3 cards and trash 2 is really good. So even if you don't see it in your hand, you just wish you really don't want to see both in your life. But if you do, you do. That's really how it is. You still end up having most of the cards you need to win game even without this. But this is a good game finisher. And this one as well, you may rest your leader and KO up to one of your opponents with cost 5 or less. Really good triggers as well on these cards. Okay, well that's the deck list for Rebecca, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. This is really specifically for the early part of the format, where we are specifically looking at versing the mid-range decks where everyone's bringing out Film Dofi, everyone's going to bring out the Crocodiles, Blurple Crocodiles, some people piloting that. Katakuri, which just, that you can sleep and win against Rebecca with Katakuri in the original build. This build has more of a chance because it's able to interact with their bigger board and start removing and negging that as well. So this is kind of like the beginning of the format build. I might revisit this in the future if people go back to playing red or fast decks or aggro decks, and then we can go back to the more traditional way of playing Rebecca, which tries to focus on getting rid of this eeny weenies and get control of the board, so that way your opponents just starve the resources. But this one is a bit more of an interactive style where you're actually trying to put your own big units on the board early on as well, and try and control the board, but also put pressure and go for more of a tempo game. So right now we're feeling the format be very tempo-y as people try out these new decks. So if you want to have a build of Rebecca that's really good into this early part of the format, try this out. You might have fun with it. And then as you visualize your meta and understand what your locals is like, if your locals has more Zoro players and Whitebeard players, then you start dropping the Kaidos and the Ishos, and then putting in your Dressrosa cards like more Rebeccas, more Leos, and more Colosseums, because you know you're going to have more interaction with your opponent's fast decks. You know we're not going to end this video without a quick playthrough of a Rebecca game and show you how to pilot this awesome leader. This is the perfect matchup, and we've drawn the perfect hand for this kind of matchup. Zoro's quick, and we want a very low to the ground, heavy blocker hand. This looks great. We've got the Colosseum ready to help engage with their opponent's characters when he plays them. So we kept this hand and let them go first. We want to go second. We want to accumulate more cards. And we're just going to start off simply with playing the stage and then using Rebecca's ability. We're lucky. You're almost always going to get a hit on Rebecca's ability. We play a lot of the Dressrosa package. So here we're able to gain one and then mill one and get us ready for the future matches, future parts of this round. What we see going forward is the opponent try and take an early life. You should actually counter out of these. You should counter out of everything when you're going up against Zoro. So we countered straight out of it. The idea is to add not only value by countering out and keeping our life up, we're also adding more cards into our mills so we can activate our abilities later on. So in this case, we can play the Kairos early and neg one of his 1-drops. It's so good. You don't have to play the Olympus first. In this matchup, they always have 1-drops that are easy targets for the Kairos. In other kind of matches, you'd play the Olympus or the Kuzan first. That way you can use the -4 abilities. But against Zoro, it's quite easily the best play is always playing the Kairos and getting rid of one of their creatures. Because Zoro just wants to go wide, go fast, burn their resources, and try and win game. We're going to out-resource them. We're going to try and use the ability of Rebecca every turn. And that's kind of the gist of playing the Rebecca leader. It's kind of like that cycle on repeat. And then when you're ready, you can start applying pressure. When your resources out-resource your opponent. And here we're thinking about what we might play in the next turn. If we want to play the Kazan, counted out of that attack with an easy 1k. Rebecca's not that good on play anyway. We have the ability of Rebecca leader, but we draw another Rebecca anyway. So we're going to play the Kazan out, get the draw into Olympus, which is great. And then we also get to use the ability of Rebecca to also get a Sabo into the hand. Amazing pulls off the Rebecca ability. And even in playtesting with the cards, this is kind of like how it actually works. And you're always going to get a good card off your draw 2 on Rebecca's leader ability. So at this point, we have way too many cards in our hand. So we have to try and also work out how to keep using our resources so we can gain more resources. Because Rebecca's ability only is enabled on the when you have 6 cards or less. And we use Kairos to attack in, counters out, continues to pass back the turn to the opponent. I don't know if this opponent's versed Rebecca yet, but he swings into the Kairos, so we get to showcase his ability. Instead of KOing, he gets to tap down a leader or a stage card. The stage has to be the Colosseum, so he'll continue to try and we'll tap the leader, and he can't KO our Kairos. And then he will get the counter, get the actual attack through. We'll let him have a Kairos because we have another one in our hand. And that's actually going to be pretty sweet. His Marco is pretty hard to deal with. It can be very sticky because of the event cards. Oh, he hits us with the Fire Fist. Oh, so that's pretty good. Fire Fist is still a great card. And I think that's one of the cards that should have been banned, not the other cards. But we won't talk about that. It's so strong. So we'll put down the Olympus so we can start using its ability. This is where I'm thinking about playing Kairos, but to get even more value, we're actually going to drop the Rebecca first, pick one card. In this case, I'm going to take Monkey D. Luffy. He's a game finisher. And then we play before we play the Kairos, we use the ability of Olympus, and then we neg 4 by destroying our Rebecca. That's why we play the Rebecca. And then with the free reigning Dawn, we get to use Kairos' ability to remove 1 cost, which in this case is the Marco. Opponent uses an event card to bring him back, so that's expected. But now we also get to swing because of our Colosseum into the 5k. He counters out, and then we just do another swing. And at this point, he's got 1 card in his hand, and we have 5. The game is very much in our favor. We'll see how much he can take of us absorbing his resources, and He does have a lot of pressure, and he did put more pressure on our life, but we were able to count out of it, and now we have a handful of cards. We have a graveyard with more than 15 cards ready to use Luffy's ability to attack twice if needed. It's just really hard from a Zoro in this position to actually reclaim the game. It's actually very, very good. And also with the Luffy ability, we can restack the 7 cards that we use for his ability. I think we're going to count out of this so we can keep the Olympus in pressure. He might not have an event card in hand, so I'm just going to simply count out of this. If he wants to get rid of it, he's going to have to use his Marco to swing into it. But then he's wasting an attack resource, and we play the Luffy, and the Luffy can clear the Marco next turn for sure. And then it's our game from there. Okay, so he did end up attacking the Olympus, so he brought down another Marco, which is pretty good as well. That's not bad, but means he probably doesn't have another event in his hand. Oh, Gum Gum King Kong. So we basically play the Luffy. We can attack with the Luffy and the Gum Gum King Kong and put pressure on life, or we can just put Don up. Oh, he's given up. So that's pretty much how you play Rebecca. Amazing. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Alex from Shuffle Up. If you guys like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below what you guys want to see next. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Only 5% of our viewers are subscribers, so we need to bump those numbers up. And please hit that subscribe button. Thanks guys. See you guys in my next video.